Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 307 podcast. I'm so fired up about today's episode with a good friend of mine named Ian Thomas Lynch. A lot of you guys have heard about Ian in the stories that I tell. And Ian was the young man that I ran the Bob's Big Timber Backyard Ultra, the last man standing race. That would have been in May of 2019. And that is where a lot of these mantras that we use today were born, and most especially the don't die in the chair mantra. So Ian, this was Ian's first endeavor into the ultramarathon world, and Ian ended up running over 100 miles that day on his first ultra. And we just really teamed up. We worked through these mantras. We learned a lot about ourselves. And Ian got to learn a lot about what he was actually capable of that day. And he just talks through how the power of the spoken word and the power of people and the camaraderie that we had together and the brotherhood that we shared on that day pushed us beyond our perceived limits. So I hope you enjoy this episode. We're going to do a little housekeeping now. I've got Brooke here with me. Going to tell you about a couple of companies that have sponsored this show today, that support 307 podcast, and that we believe in and that we use in our own house on a day-to-day basis. Anytime you hear a sponsorship on this show, I can assure you it is for a product that we actually use. I don't allow sponsors to come on that I'm not familiar with their product or I don't believe in their product. So the first sponsor we're going to talk about today is Natural Rapport. And you guys know we've got 2 dogs here in the house. They're our babies. We love them. We treat them as well as we possibly can, and we're very particular about what we feed them and the products that we use to take care of them. So Natural Rapport is a pet, almost they make all different types of pet treats and grooming products, ear wipes. I mean, they got a whole lineup, pretty much everything that you need to care for your animal, your partner. They're all uncomplicated. They are gentle, safe, and effective. They use natural ingredients that are all made in the USA. So, they just really hit the spot. And I want Brooke to tell you a little bit about her experience with Natural Rapport products.
Yeah, and Chad, he's accurate. I can attest to when a sponsor reaches out to us, Chad's response is, send me the product, I'll try it, and I'll get back with you. That's always, we don't ever put an ad on the podcast before we try something. But this company in particular reached out to us, and we don't feed our dogs treats. Like, I don't go to a big box store anywhere and buy treats for my dog. I just as soon give them a piece of cheese or a piece of meat because everything's made in China and dogs wind up just dying from these treats that have heavy metals or some crazy stuff. But anyways, the treats from Natural Rapport, I'm seriously about to order some more. The freeze-dried liver and there's beef liver and chicken liver are their favorites, and we actually pour it on their food now. But the ingredient is just chicken liver or beef liver. My dog's Leonard especially, if you hand her a French fry, she turns up her nose. I was trying to feed her a waffle last night. She wouldn't eat a waffle. But everything from Natural Rapport I've handed to these dogs, they've loved it. And no upset stomachs. The chews are awesome. And then I finally used the shampoo 2 days ago. We had company over, had to wash the dogs.
Yeah.
And it doesn't lather, which I was like, oh gosh, this is not going to work. But I guess the lathering is chemicals, and it's very limited ingredient. The dogs were so clean. They smelled great. I just love the products. I love all the products.
Yeah, so we're a solid believer in this company for sure. They've been awesome. So if you guys are interested in any Natural Rapport products, first of all, you can go to their website to order your products from Natural Rapport. That is just www.naturalrapport. That's NATURALRAPPORT.com, naturalrapport.com. And also follow them on Instagram. They got some really cool pictures and posts up on their Instagram.
If you're an animal lover, especially a dog lover, you will be in love with their Instagram.
Yep. So, and that's just at Natural Rapport on Instagram. So, thank you guys for Natural Rapport. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast today. Our next sponsor is pretty cool. It is called Traveler. And so Traveler is a non-alcoholic sparkling water infused with all-natural hemp extract. So the CBD, it has about 20 milligrams of CBD per can. So the owner of Traveler is actually a good family friend of ours, and they put a lot of time into producing a quality product and a quality brand. I absolutely love this sparkling CBD water. Look, guys, I don't know the science behind CBD, but I have been using it over the last probably 3 months. And essentially for me, I use it in the evenings, probably about an hour before bed. And I have seen a noticeable difference in the amount of time it takes me to get to sleep and the quality of sleep that I get. So, that's just my own personal testimony with CBD. Like I say, don't know the science behind it, but I know I am getting good feedback when using this product. So I want to put it out there to you guys. Again, that's Traveler, and they can be purchased online, and their website is just travelercbd.com. That's TRAVELLERCBD.com, or at findyourtraveler.com. So their CBD is sourced from hemp grown in Colorado. So this stuff is grown in America, and they can ship this stuff to almost anywhere in the world. So if you guys enjoy using CBD, you want a good, non-alcoholic beverage in the evening with your dinner, has awesome flavor, awesome benefits, go check Traveler out. Follow them on Instagram at Traveler Sparkling H2O. All right, guys, here is Ian Thomas Lynch. Hope you enjoy the episode. Enough said.
I guess I'm going to digress a little bit and say real quick that, you can call me smart or whatever, but when it comes to running, I am about as simple as they come, especially in those sorts of circumstances. You get so, simplified down to just a couple core phrases. And, I didn't need any more than that, So if I was down to 4 or 5 different, sayings to myself, and one of them was, I will never quit, and that was who I was. There was nothing really complicated about it. It was just, that was the reality. Like you said, we're going to create this reality.
Fired up to get to have a chat with you, man. I've been missing you, brother.
Dude, feeling is mutual. It's been too long.
Yeah, man. There's not many weeks that go by that I don't think about Ian Thomas Lynch at some point, brother.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's been 52 weeks now since we did our little mosey in the mud, as it were.
That's it, man. That's a good way to put it, brother. Well, hey, man, welcome to the 3 of 7 podcast, dude.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here.
Well, the honor's obviously all ours. Ian, I'm gonna call you Ian. I refer to you as Tom. You go by Ian though, right?
No, I actually go by Thomas, but it's a long story. I went by Ian for the first 18 years of my life. My parents still call me that.
Yeah.
All my friends from high school still do. So, you call me what you will.
Well, I'm just going to stick with Thomas then, man, because I was just trying to be formal, because, we never really got that straight out on the trail that day, so I've referred to you as Thomas so many times, brother. And, let me tell you, man, I mean, dude, whether you, dude, I know you're a super humble guy, and whether you like it or not, you're a legend, brother. I mean, you're,
Come from you. I don't know if I can accept that.
dude, your story that, and I just, first of all, I thank you for doing what you did and then allowing me to share my version of your story and your strength and what you went through that day with the world, man, because your story has literally impacted millions of people, and it has become one of the foundational stories that I use in order to portray these tools that you and I developed that day together. Like, that day was like the ultimate foundation to then be able to go and portray these tools to the world, and in turn help. I mean, there's, without a doubt, it's reached millions of people. Like, no kidding. That's not an overestimate. And that's why I'm so fired up about having you on here today, man. I was just reading through some comments from that Rich Roll podcast that I
Oh yeah.
did. So that thing's got like 320 or 30,000 views just on YouTube. And I was looking at the comments today, just kind of reflecting, thinking about our interview, and and there were a couple comments on there that said, "I want to hear from Ian. I want to hear from Thomas," and like, so just freaking awesome, brother.
All
Um,
right.
so what you been up to, man? How's life been treating you? What are you doing? What's going on with your running and life? And I just want to catch up real quick, man.
Sure. Well, where to start? So I live in Coshocton, Ohio, which is kind of a rural area in the east central region. I'm a social worker for county level children's services agency, and I've been doing that for about 2.5 years now. Um, Things have been a little bit hectic with COVID. We're still going out and making our home visits and doing what we got to do. But we got a strong team, which is really important, and we're taking all the precautions we got to take to make sure children stay safe. That keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah,
I've got a couple hobbies that I like to indulge myself in outside of running. I'm still running. Just actually came from a 4 mile run a little bit ago. That's kind of my minimum. And we
yeah,
can go into a little bit later as to why. But yeah, no, I don't know. I play a lot of chess. I play piano. I read a lot.
yeah.
These are my main pleasures.
Well, that's I think that's one of the things that amazes me most about you, Ian, is that so you are a highly intelligent individual. Anyone that meets you is going to realize pretty quick that Ian is a highly intelligent individual, but he has a level of grit that is just freaking off the charts, man. Like, this dude, not only can he play the piano, not only can he beat you in chess, not only does he live a life of service, as for the children that you guys take care of and look after, like you said, you fill all these roles, man, but you also have this place that you can go, brother, that's like, all right, man, it's time to get gritty, dude. And that is the epitome of the mantra, be hard when it gets hard, man. Come on, man.
Oh man, your little cliches, your wisdoms, be hard when it gets hard, and don't die in the chair. These are things that I have to say to myself every day. So these things that they're with me all the time. And I don't know. I was just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time when our paths crossed. But I thank you. You said a lot of flattering things just now. But I'm just I don't know. I'm just trying to be me. I don't know if that's really accurate or a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm just, I guess, glad that this is primarily an audio medium, because that way the listeners at home aren't going to be able to see me blushing from ear to ear.
Look, dude, that's what makes it so awesome, dude, is you like you said, you are just trying to be you. You are just you, man. And that's me too, dude. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, it's just we just live out our lives, and we've been fortunate enough to learn some things along the way that have allowed us to help other people in a big way, man. And it's a blessing, man, for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
so, man, I definitely, for the listeners, most of you guys have probably heard of Ian Thomas Lynch. We did the Bob's Big Timber Backyard Ultra Marathon last May, so May 2019. We spent a lot of time together. This event was where these mantras were born. This "don't die in the chair" mantra. That's where this mantra was born. And Ian, that I mean, that was just, man, it was just set in stone that day. And we've been fortunate enough to sell thousands of those t-shirts with "don't die in the chair." That has resonated with so many people, man. And this is where it was born, is during that event. And primarily for this episode is I've like I said, I've told my version of it. I want to hear your story, Ian. Um, you know, whatever you want to share, and I'll guide you through it. We'll talk through the whole thing, but it's just, we're so blessed to have you on and to hear your side of it. So that day, man, first of all, I guess what was driving you to sign up or enter and go attempt this last man standing race, dude?
Well, that's an interesting place to start, because there were a lot of circumstances that conspired to get me to that starting line. Not all of it was my own will, but once I finally hit that submit button and paid the entry fee, it was game on. I mean, I there was nothing I wanted more than to hit that goal of 100 miles. I didn't really think I had any chance of winning, and that's not really what I was after. It was a very personal goal for me, but it was very important at the same time. Um, I guess how I ended up signing up for the race. I've got this friend. His name's Chris Pratt, and he's not famous, but we went to high school together, and we ran cross country together, and we've sort of stuck in touch a little bit more than a lot of my other high school friends. I lived in Chicago for about 7 years after high school, and then came back home to Ohio. It's more or less where I'm from. And he was still here at that time too. So we'd get together and run and shoot the breeze. But we had our cross country coach from high school, Kevin Beachy, who was a competitor in this race as well.
Yep.
Is actually his dad, well, father-in-law, who was running this thing, Bob Hunter.
Okay.
His face. And so, Beachy and I, we go back. We've always kind of had a bit of a rivalry, and it's all in good fun because he's always been a much better runner than me. But I always aspired to beat him. And when I got back to Ohio after college, I had just come off a season of cross country and track, and I was kind of in the best shape of my life at that time. So I thought I'd make a go at it, and we had run a half marathon against each other in nearby New Philadelphia, and he got first, and I got second, and it was just like, I still can't beat him. But he's a friend. Anyway, getting back to Chris, he's like, Beach is going to be doing this thing, and he knows that I've got like this deep seated like drive to kind of take it to Beachy in a way. And I was like, oh, all right. I still know, man, 100 miles, that's just like so much suffering. I don't even know if that's something that I could reasonably commit to. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it without you. And we're staring at our phones and like just reading over this thing. And we're like, are we really going to do this? We already kind of knew that we were going to do it. And we both ended up just signing up right then. And I think that was still about like 2 months before the race. So that's when the training started. And I didn't really overdo it on the mileage. I think, I had been coming off of back injuries and didn't really want to risk doing more than 30 miles a week. So, my minimum run was 4 miles because I knew that had to be, that chunk that I had to be able to say, I can do this, at any given point. And that more or less took me to race day.
That's amazing, brother. And so you guys sign up for this thing. What was it about the 100 miles? Because it's like, dude, you were not an ultra runner. You were, yeah. I mean, you did track, right? So you had speed, you had those ingredients, you had form, but
I got, yeah, I got to correct you there too, because I never really had speed. When I was in fifth grade, I wanted to do like 100 meters. I loved the feeling of going as fast as I could and winning. But by the time I hit seventh grade, people started catching up to me. I pretty much did all my growing by the time I was 12 years old, and eventually people started coming up to my height, and that was a bit of an eye opener for me. And I realized that I didn't have what they call fast twitch muscles. I was just destined for distance in a way. And I was fortunate enough, I guess, also to have this gym teacher in fifth grade. We had to decide which events we were going to do for track and field day, and I did the cross country event, which for fifth graders was like maybe 1,000 meters. It was nothing.
yeah.
But it killed all of us, and I think I got like 12th out of 25 that first year. Definitely middle of the pack, and we thought we were dying, but I had kind of gotten the bug right there. Next year, I trained more for it, and I got second. And the guy that got first, he didn't end up going out for cross country, but I kind of got recruited for that, and that's when my distance running career began. Was kind of in seventh grade with cross country, and I had a decent career in high school with running. That was where it all began for me. Um,
But still like with the 100 mile distance, I mean so there's usually a significant progression up to that distance. I mean 100 miles. I mean you're talking about most people are gonna run marathons for a few years. Then they're gonna do dabble in some 50Ks. Then they're gonna probably do 150 miler and think, oh my gosh, how can I possibly double this distance? I know that's the progression that I went through. My first 50 miler, I'm like, how could I ever possibly double this distance? But for you, not coming from any experience with ultra distance, what was going through your head, man, when you picked that, when you set that 100 mile standard for yourself, dude? How did you come to that conclusion and set that goal for yourself? Where did that number come from, brother? Because you
I
could have said 20 miles, you could have said 50 miles, you could have said 30. In this race, you can set your standard wherever you want it. You know what I mean?
I think the belt had a big thing to do with it. I'm actually sitting right in front of my belt buckle right now,
Heck yeah, brother.
and I really wanted that piece of metal, but not necessarily for just like the material object ness of it, but for I don't know what it symbolizes, that you can stick it out and put mind over matter, because that's what it's going to take. Um, and I think I had also been kind of I don't know. I've been messing with people for a long time because I had all this. like decent training in for years. But I didn't want to run more than like 22 miles at a time because I was under this impression that it was actually bad for you, to do that to your body. And I don't know. I mean, with a race like this, it doesn't matter. You talk about putting ourselves in self-inflicted adversity, and that was exactly what I was prepared to do that day.
I believe that, brother. I believe that, man. And for the listeners, for the buckle that Ian's talking about, for this race in particular, if you got to 100 miles, everybody that got to that 100 mile mark, we got a silver belt buckle. And if you didn't make the 100 mile mark, you did not get the buckle. So that's what he's talking about. And it was a really cool thing to get that buckle at the end of that race. And Bob puts on an awesome event, man. It was absolutely amazing. But so all right, you got this goal for yourself, 100 miles. We show up, dude. I'm this old dude from Georgia above the Mason Dixon line, up there with all you guys in Ohio. I don't even know which. I mean, and so back then for me too, Ian. Like I had just, I think I had just gotten out of the Navy, and um I had no message. I didn't have any platform. I didn't have anything, man. When it comes to that, the space that I'm in now, and it was brand new. That was a brand new experience for me to be able to develop these tools. And so we toe the line, we start the race, man, and you and I eventually end up linking up and just having some small talk, dude. Do you remember that moment? Because I kind of distinctly remember it. I mean,
What I remember is we were on our second loop, and I think I found you kind of taking a pause and appreciating the scenery a little bit off the trail.
yeah,
And you got your spandex right. You came back to the trail, and we just kind of happened upon each other. And I think you had complimented my mustache at the time, which was part of my I don't know, like I don't know what the word is. I just wanted all these little extra good luck charms, in a way. And I'd always idolized Steve Prefontaine and some of the other like famous mustachioed runners from like more contemporary times like Noah Droddy or Craig Engels. These guys are dope and they're running with mustaches, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna catch that vibe.
yeah,
But yeah, so we caught up, and you were uh, giving me a nice compliment on my mustache, and I was like, that means a lot coming from you because your beard is glorious and it's so red and it's just so vibrant, And so we're giving each other some nice compliments about our hair, and I don't know. I think we also made some comments about how everybody else seemed to be in such a hurry, and we were running like 50 to 55-minute loops of 4.1 miles, um, and that was definitely our strategy going in at the beginning.
yep,
And I don't know. I can't really remember where it went from there. I mean, you had identified yourself as a Navy SEAL, and I was just kind of really impressed by that history and all the toughness that entailed. So
well,
I
I mean,
died.
yeah, I mean, I feel like we really like I can distinctly remember that first moment seeing you out on the race, man, and I don't know, I could see in you that you were definitely humble. I mean, you were the first impression was that you were kind of more the quiet type. You weren't too serious at all, but I think it was just that humbleness that you have, but then I could also tell that you were in this thing for the long game, and I could just see it in your eyes, man. I could see the hunger in your eyes, and I think that's a big reason why I connected with you more so than anybody else on that race course. Even the guys that were left there at the very end. You and I just established that connection almost immediately. And we carry on throughout this race, brother. And I want to know from you, Ian, when for you did it start getting hard? Like, when did it become real, brother? Was there a distinctive moment where that switch flipped and you were like, holy smokes, what have I got myself into?
It's hard to say at this point. So much of it has kind of been probably blocked out like a traumatic memory.
Yeah.
But no, what I do remember is that we hit the 50-mile mark, and I genuinely felt great. I had no pain. I was well hydrated and had eaten all the necessary food. I wasn't really going through any problems, and I was amazed that I had gone that far and still hadn't any signs or symptoms of wear and tear. Um, Probably once it got dark, things started to get, more figuratively dark for me, mentally. Um, but you'd probably bought me some time on that one too, in a way, because I had anticipated some of these concerns or problems, and you had already given me some messages to to recite. I asked you. I remember early on, because I told you pretty, like early, that I wanted to run 100, and you're like, "Oh, you can do that."
Yeah.
100. That's when the race begins. And I was like, "Well, I don't know about that, but I'd certainly like to do that." And I asked you about, what about the night? What do you do? And you're like, the night is your friend. And everything that I was saying, like, what am I going to do in this instance? You were like, "Oh, don't worry about that. That's going to be fine." And I just started, saying that kind of stuff to myself. Like, oh, it doesn't matter. If you feel like a little, pain, like that, it's not important. It's not there. I
Yep.
feel great. I
Yep.
feel better than I felt when I started this race.
I love it, man. And I just read I got on Instagram and I read your post that you made after the race while you were recovering. And that was one of those mantras that I think really, really resonated, with both of us that day, man, is it doesn't matter. And, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, dude, with what that actually means and how we learned that day is, yeah, it might be dark, it might be muddy, it might be we might be absolutely exhausted, but man, we're gonna recover. When all this is over and we're back at home on our couch with our feet kicked up, all those things that we experienced and all that discomfort that we put ourselves through, truly, it really didn't matter in the scheme of things. And
No,
yeah, and I just feel like that's something now that, you and I can take that now throughout the rest of our lives. When life happens and we get in those situations, man, where it is uncomfortable, it is uncertain, similar to the situation that we're in now as society. We are gonna bounce back from this, bro. I mean, this scenario right here you can compare all these things back to the lessons that we learned that day on the trail, dude. It's like we are strong. We are. There's so many awesome people out here in the world that are left that are hungry for positivity, that are hungry to accomplish their goals, start businesses, whatever it may be. We're going to bounce back, man. And what's going on right now, it really doesn't matter. It's not something that we need to be fearful of. It's not something that we need to lose sleep at night over, man, because we're gonna push forward, and that's what we did that day at Bob's, man. Um, Dude, and for me too, brother. When the night hit, and man, that cold rain started coming down, dude, and that dang road from our little tent site going out to the road, the night section, that
absolutely. Yeah.
that joker was rough, man.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 6 inches of what I think you called foot sucking mud.
Dude, that was a tough track, man. And for me, Ian, or Thomas, my bad, bro. For
Either way.
for me, Thomas, that I can remember, man. We had a conversation on that little stretch right there where we talked to each other and we said, you know what, man, we're gonna start telling each other, I will never freaking quit. um, we had that conversation, and I remember talking to you about it, man. And that was a bold statement for us to make in that moment,
Me especially. Oh my goodness. I'm
dude.
sure you can say stuff like that because you're familiar with the power of the spoken word. But for me, that was something that I did have to kind of come around to. At least in those 30, 45 seconds where I was like, "Oh, this doesn't feel right." But then, it was Chad saying it. It was someone that I had put my trust in and had sort of trusted as a guru, someone that was going to guide me through this thing. And so, yeah, I was prepared to do pretty much anything you told me to do if it was gonna, get that job done.
Well, and that's right, brother. I mean, it was a bold statement, because when you make a statement like that, whether it's in a race or whether it's in life period or relationship, whatever it is, when you make that statement out loud in front of your peers, I will never quit. You have some accountability there. There's some accountability involved with that statement, brother. But dude, you rogered up, and I can't count the amount of times that you and I passed each other that night, going back and forth, and us yelling out to each other, I will never freaking quit. Like, we would yell it out with conviction, dude. And so what did that statement do for you, Ian, when you would make that affirmation, when you would speak that out loud, dude? Because, and again, in that post, that's another thing I think that you mentioned in there, is that simple statement, I will never quit. What did that do for you? And what does that mean to you now, man?
Okay. Well, it sort of goes back to, those statements that I've been saying at the beginning of the race, where I'm saying, I feel fine, I feel great. And, if there's a, a dull pain or something like that, then I'll say, like, oh, it doesn't matter. But, if I'm going to say, I will never quit, I, I guess I'm going to like digress a little bit and say real quick that you can call me like smart or whatever, but when it comes to running, I am about as simple as they come. Especially in those sorts of circumstances, you get so, I don't know, simplified
Yeah.
down to just a couple core phrases. And, I didn't need any more than that, So if I was down to four or five different sayings to myself, and one of them was I will never quit, and that was who I was. There was nothing really complicated about it. It was just that was the reality. Like you said, we're gonna create this reality.
Oh my
And
gosh, that's powerful, bro.
but I guess what was special about I Will Never Quit is that it did kill off the last of my, I don't know, like, my vanity in a way, at least in that moment. Cause, I don't want people looking at me like, oh, look at this guy making a nuisance of himself, like, what's he doing out here? And you like, I remember this was one of our later laps. You got up to the starting line right before they rang the bell, and you were like, are you warriors ready to play? And, I was part of the like half or two-thirds of us that said, yeah, exhaustedly.
Yeah.
And then I think Olivier, who ended up winning the race, not to like spoil the ending or anything, he ended up saying, like, I don't want to play, but
That dude was a machine, bro.
he was, yeah. But I mean, we were just having a good time. It didn't matter how much it hurt.
Totally, brother. And so, have you now, as far as that simple statement, man, that was born for both of us in that moment, in that furnace of adversity, do you see a place for that now in your everyday life? And have you been able to use that, basically that mentality, from when that race ended now, throughout the rest of your goals, man?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's got a bunch of different applications outside of running. You can I mean, if you're going to tell yourself, I will never quit, that's going to get you a really long way. It's really hard for me to resign. If I'm after something, whether it be in work or whether it be to the annoyance of my competitors in like a chess game, and I've got a losing position, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
quit, there's always a chance. No, and yeah, my other more kind of vague aspirations, like becoming a better piano player or writing something that will be interesting to other people, like these are the types of things that kind of steal my resolve.
I love it,
Sometimes
man.
while running, you can still say pretty simple things. When I was in high school, I had a couple simple phrases, but they were generic. It was like, keep it up or you're almost there. If I'm cheering on somebody at a race, that's what I would say, because it more or less worked for me, but it's not as good as I will never quit.
It's
It's
definitive. Yeah.
powerful about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially saying it out loud.
So that was my next question for you, Ian. I want to know from your perspective, man. Do you think that statement would have held the same power and given us the same results if we would have just thought it to ourselves?
No, I knew that accountability was a big part of what was going to get me there. If I didn't have anyone outside of my legs and the voices in my head, then I was probably going to quit at some point. But by saying that out loud into the world, I you got to live up to that role, that people see you as. This is
Yeah.
a guy that's going crazy. He's goofy enough to not know when's the right time to quit. um, and yeah, he's clearly gonna either run until he drops, and I don't know when that's gonna be. Um, Sorry to talk about myself in third person.
No, I love it, man. I love it. And I gotta get you I just want you to walk me through, I guess, that nighttime, man. I want to get from you kind of what were the low points for you, man? And because that was a rough night. I mean, it was cold, it was nasty, it was muddy. We got full benefit that night, brother.
Yeah.
Any low points for you, man, and kind of any other tools that you use to get through that dark, nasty night, man?
Well, I think there's more to say about accountability in a way here too, because there were a couple people that I had disclosed my intention of running 100 miles to before running. I really kind of kept that under wraps. I wanted to be really nonchalant about it. So I had told my family a while before, but they didn't really, I guess, understand the gravity of running 100 miles. They're like, oh, this is a guy that runs distant races, like it's just what he does. So they weren't really making a big deal out of it, which was good. And then I was actually in your former neck of the woods. I was in Richmond visiting a couple friends, my good friend Madison and her husband Josh. And I told them, this was probably like a week out, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to run 100 miles. And again, being fairly nonchalant about it, but I I wanted I wanted to, in a way, do it for them. Like I didn't want to let them down. And then right before run the race on that Saturday, I was leaving work on a Friday, and I just, I was talking with the clerical staff in the office, and they were like, what are you doing this weekend, Thomas? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm in this race. I'm going to try to run 100 miles. And they were like, what? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm like, no big deal. And so that was kind of the list of the people that I had told. But I needed to have it out there in the world that people were either going to be like, oh yeah, he did it, like he said he was going to do it, or they were going to say, oh, he quit, at least to themselves. So that was definitely part of what was keeping me accountable out there. But I guess getting back to your question about, what were the low points during the night, in a way, there weren't any that were so bad that I really felt like I was in danger of not going out on another loop. I was very intentional, and I planned pretty well for all of the different things that could go wrong. I had ibuprofen and caffeine in my tent. I had a sufficient number of clothing items that I could change into, though by the time we hit that 24-hour mark, I was certainly running low on serviceable shoes and socks. So we were running to the end of my supplies, but I had enough to get to 24 hours, except for a headlamp, which this is kind of an interesting little part, I guess, that answers your question directly.
Yeah.
I got this really nice headlamp, right? But it wasn't really like a runner's headlamp. It was more like I don't know, like a mining headlamp or something. It was super bright, and I don't know, it seemed like a good headlamp. But I had been using it for like, I don't know, 5, 6 laps, and then it goes out in the middle of the loop. And without saying anything, you come up from like, I don't know, maybe like 30 feet behind or ahead, and you don't even address it, but you ran stride for stride with me for the rest of that loop, just like being there. And I think what you did talk about, you had showed me, the fallen seal that was on your wrist coach.
Yep.
Told me their data sacrifice, and that was another thing that we haven't brought up yet, but that really also helped. Putting that into perspective for what are we doing here? We're just going to suffer a little bit, and we're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
These guys gave everything, so it's giving me chills for just now, just thinking about that. So that really helped as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, I do remember that lap with you, Thomas, and that actually wasn't in the forefront of my memory until you just mentioned it. But now I can distinctly recall it, us doing that lap together, us having that conversation, man. And another thing too, Thomas, is you talk about that accountability. So basically, you didn't go and blast this goal out on social media and everywhere else. You told the people that mattered to you. And I can really resonate with that, brother, because when I decided I wanted to become a SEAL, I did the exact same thing that you did, dude. I went and I told my family, and then I told a select few friends that mattered to me, and that was all that was the only people that I expressed my intentions to. Basically, that I wanted to go and try to become a SEAL. And I think that's an important takeaway right there, man, for people that are out there that have these massive goals, these aspirations. You're not obligated to go blast these things out to the world. As a matter of fact, I think that that's poor form to do that. I think that the process is just like Ian said he did, is you go and tell the people that matter, and that is enough to hold you accountable when it gets really, really tough. And that's just to me, that's an awesome takeaway, brother. I gotta ask you, man. You said you were running low on supplies, and I have to ask you about the freaking track shoes you were wearing for like half the night, dude. Like, dude, you would come by me, or we would pass each other, and all I would hear is click, 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 click.
Honestly,
What was going on, brother?
I only think I did that for like one of the night loops, but it was
Well,
pretty funny.
time gets distorted.
Those worked pretty well. No, that's an interesting story because I hadn't used those since I was like 16, 17 years old, and
Yeah.
they were pretty good form. But yeah, no, the first time I took those out, we were still running the trail. So I think, just to back up, we did the first, how many was it? It was more than 12, I think. Or
It may have been 13 or 14. Yeah,
like
because
12 or 13, 14 loops on the regular trail. And then right before it got dark, we switched to the road portion of the course, which was simpler, but kind of less interesting. It was flatter, which was nice. But it had this long section that we've already mentioned, from the start line to maybe the first, like, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200 meters that were just like, terrible mud.
oh yeah,
And I figured, if I put those spikes back on, then, I'm going to get through that fine, because I didn't like, I didn't like having to drag my feet through that. It felt like going through quicksand. I
There
never
was
liked
no
going through deep.
running. There was no running in
Yeah,
that period.
no. So that I thought would work, and I didn't really mind it. On the road, it wasn't that bad.
You
So,
you
but
crack.
yeah, no, I switched back to regular shoes. I think after that.
Dude, I got such a laugh out of that, man, because I knew, obviously I knew that you were you weren't a seasoned ultra runner. That this was your kind of this was your first endeavor into an ultra distance race. And I was like, when I heard you come by me in those track shoes, I was like, man, this dude is in trouble. I love him to death, but this dude he's out here in track shoes, man. And I got the biggest laugh out of that. And I think that's just so epic. I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere else before. And I don't know. I just had to mention that because I can distinctly remember those clicks going down that road, man. And so yeah, man, we grind out through the night, brother. And again, we're yelling these mantras out. I will never quit. And the we get toward the end of the night, and we had reached our we'll just skip up forward to the 24-hour mark, man. And so this race is where Don't Die in the Chair was born, like I said earlier. And Thomas and I had talked to each other about that mantra, and we had almost, made that promise to each other that we wouldn't die in the chair. And you hit your goal, man. You hit your 100 miles, dude. The sun's up. It's a glorious moment. And you actually beat me on that last lap by a long shot, because I remember coming and
No,
sit.
that's not true. We
Well,
came in together.
did we come in together on that
You
last one?
caught up with me. Yeah, you caught
Okay.
up. I went flying out the gate though.
Okay. Okay.
That, but
And
partially because I was starting to break down already. I was 23 laps in and coming in off that loop, and I just started like getting these little like choke sobs, like because I think it was starting to dawn on me that I had basically done it. That there
yeah.
was no turning back. Like I finally knew that I was going to get there.
Yeah.
That there was nothing that was really going to stay. I've been saying this thing that I'm never going to quit, and maybe a part of me didn't really believe it, but when I got that close, it started to overwhelm me with joy. And I think also just running like that long and doing an all-nighter like that, you're going to lose control of your emotions to a
Yeah.
certain extent. But no, that 24th loop, I know I went out hard, but I'm pretty sure you caught up with me right away, and we more or less ran the whole thing together.
Well, and my memory of it, Thomas, was coming, and I sat down in my chair with my crew in my area, and I kind of looked back. I want to say it was over my right shoulder, and there you are, man. You're in your chair, and it's like just have this look on your face of just, man, I just did it. Like, I'll never forget your face, man, when I look back and saw you and you had accomplished your goal of 100 miles, dude. And um how, I mean, you kind of told us how that felt, and how that does bring up those emotions, and you kind of just are able to let loose, man. But uh then I challenged you, dude. Uh
I
and
mean,
you did one of the most amazing, you showed one of the most amazing feats of strength and grit that I have ever witnessed in
I
my entire life, man.
no. So, here's what was going through my head. I come off that 24th loop, and I rip off my DNF tag, the do not finish tag, immediately, and I'm already breaking down. you go straight to your tent, so you don't see any of this.
Yeah.
And I gave it to Bob, the race director, and I have nothing to say because I can't really get words out at that moment. And he just gives me a hug and takes what he was calling the scalp and puts it on his ring. And at that point, I've done this thing like that I didn't even really realize that I had done it because I gone back on our promise, and it dawned on me that I was so happy and elated and in a lot of pain, but I had done this thing to Chad, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? So I had to go and tell you. And so I get to your tent, and you are asleep, or you look asleep. You got something over your face,
Yeah.
and your two crew members. I know one was Brandon, and
Yeah.
the other, they're standing over you at guard, and I think they rang the first of two bells, which was like the 3-minute warning, and so they wake you up, and you look over, and it was over your right shoulder. You see me there, and I'm getting ready to say, Chad, I'm sorry, but I think Brandon had to first give that speech of I forget what his name was. Someone who had sacrificed himself, or who had lost.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our fallen brothers. Yeah, man.
Absolutely. And I didn't know how to follow that, and I had to break it somehow. So I said, Chad, I love you.
Yeah.
This has been one of the best experiences of my life. Thank you, but I'm done. And that was when you said, no, you're not, Thomas. And you're still like groggy too. I remember you being like, no, you're not. You're just like shaking your head, waking up. And you're like, you don't die in the chair. We die out on the trail. And I was like, okay, So I got up, and we towed the line. And I know in the back of my mind, I was wondering, like, is Bob going to let me get out of this gate? But he did. And I was running with you, and it's like everything in my body had shut down.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful morning, and I was in so much pain, but I was going to go as long as I could. I was like, you were right, Chad. Let's keep doing this. And fortunately, you finally said, all right, you're done. Go
Dude.
back. And
I,
that is when I really lost it. I was like, oh my God.
dude.
Oh
So
man.
I love your version of that story, man. I love those little details that you possess in your own mind and your own memory that I have, that I don't have. That makes that moment, that brings it back and makes it so real to me, man. I absolutely love that. And yeah, I mean, that again, you had reached your goal. You had let your guard down at that point. I mean, and that's a crazy thing how the body works, man. It's like when you set these goals for yourself, and then you reach them, and then you kind of turn it off. That is when everything just floods in, dude. Like you say, you start you let all that pain and all that discomfort and all that fatigue, you just let it happen at that point. You no longer are staving it off. So, you know, that moment, dude, that you got up, back up out of that chair, and I knew what you were going through, because I mean, I had felt that in my own life, at the end of these races, when you do cross the finish line, and then everything just floods you in, and it's overwhelming. So I knew exactly what you were experiencing. And that's why that action that you took to not die in the chair, that is why it is so significant. And I don't think a lot of people can understand the strength and the grit and the tenacity that it took for you to rise up out of that chair, to maintain that promise that we had made to one another, and just to run that last, whatever it was, 400, 500, 600 meters together, man. And then I look over at you, and you kept your promise, and you just had shown me a magnificent uh, feat there. And dude, when we parted ways, was that not a freaking powerful moment, dude?
Oh man, I was so sad. That was the bittersweet part of it, is that, I'm pleased, I'm hurting, and I feel like in a way I'm letting you down in a way, because I wanted to be there with you to go the rest of the way, to see how far you were going to go. And I felt like in a way that I had died, maybe out on the battlefield
Yep.
or the trail.
Yep.
I don't want to use your terms because I'm not a SEAL.
No, man,
Right?
it's the battlefield of life, dude. Life is a battlefield. And it's the same with these races. Man, people always talk about and think about, well, how hard it was to be a SEAL and how hard SEAL training was. But dude, Thomas, you know this, brother. You know what's the hardest thing on earth, the hardest something that's harder than SEAL training, harder than running 100 miles. It's life itself, man. Life is a battlefield, and these things that we go and these goals that we set for ourselves, brother, these are missions, man. That race for you and I, that was a mission, dude. And we went out on that mission, and we both of us chose to die out there on the battlefield of that race course, man.
But when it started, it was my mission. When
Yeah,
I hit that starting line, it was my mission. But by the time we got into the darkness, we did it together, and it wasn't my mission anymore. And that's why I felt so sad, when I
yeah.
was in your tent giving you that disappointing news that I was done. I felt like, I was betraying our mission because it had changed at that point. And that's why I felt so like a Judas, like, what have I done? Like, I hear I got to go back to you and say it was me, that I was the one that quit. And you're like, we don't die in the chair. And I was like, absolutely right. So I'm going to follow you to hell and back. You're like any captain I used to have for my cross country teams. Actually, I'm thinking of Henry Blood was my cross country captain at U Chicago, and they said that of him a couple times, that we'd follow him to hell and back. And in a way, that was immediately the way that I had latched onto you, was like, this guy's going to take me there. But it wasn't about me at that point. It was like, it was us. It was what we were doing together.
It really was, man. And that's, dude, that is just a freaking solid point right there, Ian. It became, because same for me. At the beginning of that race, it was my mission, but it all of a sudden it became our mission. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. And that's what the brotherhood is, man. That is the brotherhood. People think about, well, why are people like you and I? You and I could see each other from this point forward. We could see each other, dude, when we are 80 years old. Lord willing, we make it that long, on some street in Ohio or wherever we are in the world, and we would immediately connect and hug each other's necks and catch up on lost time, because now we have forged this brotherhood, because all of a sudden we decided to go out and this mission became our mission. It's the same thing that happened in the SEAL teams, man. That's how the brotherhood is formed, is during these furnaces of adversity. You go through them, and if you can team up with someone else and make that, all of a sudden make that a joint mission, make that a joint operation, it becomes so much more powerful, dude. And that is where the brotherhood's formed, man. That's what happened that day. And that specific, you put it so eloquently, man, when you talked about the emotions that you were experiencing there at the end, brother. But I mean, that's you just really brought it all back to me, man, and I love it, man. I love it. And I want to hear, Thomas, what's next for you, brother? I mean, what are you going to do next? What is your next mission? What do you have on your mind to challenge yourself once again on a high level? Because you've got what it takes. You got what it takes. So I know you got something on your mind, man.
Honestly, I don't know. I sort of let these things come to me. There's not really one race in particular that I'm after right now. So
Uh-huh.
if Bob comes back, I will probably be there. You
Uh-huh.
know, um, I don't know. There are a lot of good races I'd like to do, but yeah, there's nothing really on the horizon for me just yet. Um,
Well,
if there's
what
another, sorry, go ahead.
what's the deal? What is the deal with Bob's right now, Thomas? Because I'd like to come back too, and I know you probably got more insight on it than I do. Have you heard any word on it?
I think they are putting it off, but I'm not exactly sure when it would be scheduled next.
Okay. All right. Sweet. Well, like you, I have a very similar style, and I think that you and I will find throughout our lives that people like us, a lot of the things about us are very similar, and I like to let these missions come to me too, man. I try not to plan things out too far in advance. I try to really listen to my body and see where I'm at in life from a mental standpoint, and I think you and I, brother, I think that we know ourselves well enough that we know when we get to a place, we're conscious when we get to a place where we know we need to challenge ourselves again. Um,
Right.
when maybe we haven't used those tools in a long time, that it doesn't matter, that I won't die in the chair, that I will never freaking quit. And see those tools, man, if we don't use them, you know this as well as I do, they start to get dull. And
Right.
you start to forget how powerful they actually are. And then, as long as you're conscious of that, see, we don't have to beat ourselves up on a daily basis. We're hard when it gets hard, man. Like you don't have to do this stuff every single day, but you have to remain conscious of that and say, okay, my tools are getting a little dull, and I need to put an edge back on these things. And I know that when you get to that point, you're going to be back out there, brother. And I can't wait to see what you do next, man. I mean, I love following you. I wish you'd post more on Instagram, dude.
Sorry. Yeah, I know it's been months, I think, but no, I think I try to maintain a base level of fitness, but yeah, I'm not really seeking out any particular mission at this time, but I will let you know.
Yeah,
When I
keep
do.
us posted, man, for sure. And tell us too, Thomas, where can people find you and follow you on Instagram, man, and reach out to you and and just connect with you, man.
Well, my Instagram is Ian Thomas Lynch. I think it's just my name.
Nice
So
and simple.
you can
I
find me
love
out
it.
there. But yeah, no, I actually, in answer to your earlier question, I think maybe The Revenant, could be a good thing.
Let's do it, dude.
Let's do it. I've never
Let's
been to New Zealand.
Hey man, you would absolutely love it. And if you seriously, dude, if you decide you want to do the Revenant, I would be honored to fly out there with you in 2021 and work together on that beast, dude. It is a whole nother level, and I think it's a whole nother. Yeah, obviously, it involves so many other skill sets.
Yeah.
Is the thing about it, but dude, what a powerful team we could be out there together. So please give that some serious consideration. And you let me know when it gets firm in your head, and I'll call the race director and get everything in alignment to make that happen, brother. All you'll have to do is buy a plane ticket and we'll roll, man.
Yeah. That'll be great.
Oh man, you just fired me up, dude. Look at you speaking it, dude,
Look,
speaking it out. Not
Chad and Thomas ride again.
you're not only speaking this out into the own little reality that you're surrounded by in your room there, but this is going out on these waves, dude, these media waves. This is going to reach thousands of people, so that's a powerful statement, brother. I love it, man. Bold. That's why I wanted you to come on today, man. So first of all, I gotta finish this up by thanking you for being such a significant part of my own journey. I don't know that you quite grasp how big of a part of my journey you are. And I hope one day, if you haven't, I hope one day you can grasp it. Because without you there to set the example, without you there to, without your courage to utilize these tools. And so when I saw you that day, Thomas, when I saw you use these tools and really push through significant pain and breaking new ground every lap. You were breaking into new ground every lap. And I saw you thrive, man. Like that increased my faith and my belief in the power of the spoken word, in the power of those mantras on a level that I never could have achieved if it would not have been for you. So I have to thank you literally from everything in me, from the bottom of my heart, as cliche as that sounds. Thank you, brother. You're an amazing human being, man.
Chad, you gave me one of the best experiences of my life. So it's totally free. Everything that we experienced, it was meant to be, I think. So I'm just glad that you were able to give me so much, and that if my story is able to touch other people and inspire them, then I'm all the more honored. But it's a great thing to have been here on your podcast, and to have shared that story with your audience. So thank you.
I love it, brother. I love it. Thank you so much, Ian. This is the 3 of 7 podcast. Enough said.
This podcast was produced by Your Social Gathering. We hope you enjoyed. If you are looking to increase your digital marketing presence or elevate your digital assets, check us out at yoursocialgathering.com.